Hi, this is O'Leary Logan with Renaissance Works, and today I would like to give you a golden nugget around the most underutilized yet most important skill in leadership and in business, and that is around negotiation. And specifically, I want to talk about one out of 100 different things that you need to know in negotiation. And the first one that you need to know is around interest. What is the interest that you desire and the interest that the other party desires? Very important. People think about their own interests, their agenda, and they assume other people are interested in what they're interested in. And then there's a gap and the agreement doesn't happen. Has that ever happened to you, by the way? So here is an idea that you can implement today and the rest of your career. So this has a lifetime value for you, whether you're a neophyte to negotiations or whether you're an expert already. I'll just reinforce what you know, and maybe you can see what I'm saying in a different way that will help you in your negotiation. So this is around interest. It's your interest, everything that you're interested in the next deal, and the other person's interest, how you could find it. So why is this important? Because if your interests don't match their interests, there's a gap. You can't come to agreement if there's no gap. Here, you'll never have an agreement. Have you ever experienced that? And if there's only one interest, like money, a lot of times people say it always comes down to money. That's not the case. Most negotiations, people negotiate about 15 times, 10 to 15 times a day, and most of it has nothing to do with money. But some people get all flipped out. It's all about the money. No, it's not all about the money. That's an important element. Other interests. The more interests you have, imagine these fingers, each one of them represent multiple interests. The more interests you have, and the more it overlaps with what you're interested in, then you can come to an agreement on many different combinations of interests to close the deal. So what's the important thing about interest? There's three kinds of interests. There's green light interest, there's yellow light interest, and there's red light interest. Green light is something that you tell the other person so that you can get something moving along in the conversation, in the dance of the conversation of negotiating. And because you want to see what they're interested in. You come to the party, you ask open questions, you don't assume, and you create trust and rapport, and people just open up. And typically when you listen to people, they'll share. And so those are green light interests. Yellow light interests are those things that are really important to you. And people typically don't share that unless they see you are willing to also share yellow light, just as like a street light, yellow light interest. And then there's red light interest, which are the bottom line. These are things that like you don't want to show your cards, like you're playing cards, or the fact that like, this is the last deal, I'm out of money. You don't share that. You lose power in the negotiation. But it's on your tab. It's on your tab as the interest for you. And so ask questions, find out what the overlap is, which is called, fancy word, ZOPA, or Zone of Possible Agreement. And I'll talk about that in a future video. The bigger the zone of agreement, if you just have a tiny overlap, there's not much area for agreement. You're haggling about a few things. But there is a lot of different areas. There's a lot of different areas for agreement. For instance, and let me tell you a short story. You can see this board back here. What is this board sitting back there? Well, I bought this house over 10 years ago, and I'm still working on it because it was the biggest, ugliest house that we can find in the area that my wife wanted to live. She says, I want to live here the rest of my life. Okay, so we're in a negotiation, and it's not moving forward. And other people, there's 3 other offers, and there were a lot more money on the table than us. We just had our little stake of money, and but we found out what the owner was interested in, which had nothing to do with money. She loved the house. It was a huge, diamond in the rough house. Hadn't been worked on in 20 years, and had been closed up for like about 4 years. And she wanted the house to stay whole. She didn't want the developers coming in and sweeping the house off of the double lot and building all these 2 brand new houses. She wanted that house to go on forever. And we had a common interest, which was we wanted to bring this house up to its old glory. It was just it now looks like a beautiful house. Before, when we got it, it was painted in pink. Can you imagine a guy moving in a house painted in pink? Actually, the actual color was Palace pink. That was the color that she loved and she used. There was pink everywhere. So, side story. But the idea was we wrote her a letter telling her that this was our interest too. And it overlapped and it sealed the deal. And she went with us, even though we had a much, much lower offer, because our interests matched her interests. Actually, it matched her legacy. And so that's just a story, one of many, of how finding out what the interest, and that was like yellow light interest for her, finding out what that is to make an agreement. As a executive coach, I always love to give out some fun mastery work. So this is your mastery work if you choose to take it on, is before your next deal, take out a piece of paper. Great thing about a blank piece of paper, you get to fill it up with possibilities. Take out a blank piece of paper too, as a matter of fact, and write down all your interests in closing that deal. And then for the party you're negotiating with, write down their interests. Now, you won't know all their interests until you start talking to them, just like us when we found out the legacy of the lady was selling the house that I'm sitting in right now. And so write down their interests. So you'll go into the negotiation armed with key information, and then you test out that information as you go forward. So negotiations, you want to be a great negotiator or a greater one, you want to actually practice. Practice doesn't create perfection. Practice creates a habit. Create a habit to be an excellent negotiator. First, by looking at interests. Again, this is O'Leary Logan with Renaissance Works, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.